Welcome, Kevin. Great to have you as my guest.
It's very nice to be here, Vanna. Thank you very much for inviting me.
You are a behavioral economist with credentials as long as my arm. Can you give the BPO and the customer experience and contact center leaders a relatable, plain language introduction of what a behavioral economist is?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very niche field, and I get this question all the time. So, behavior economics is essentially the culmination of psychology, economics, neuroscience, and other social sciences in order to understand how and why human beings make decisions and judge choices. And what this does is it helps us to build a picture of how a human being actually behaves rather than how we would like them to behave or how they ought to behave. So that is behavior economics in a nutshell.
So, as I understand it, it's a subset of behavioral sciences, but it's more to do with certain decisions, certain behaviors that impact decisions and the economics of that. That's more of a niche field as part of the behavioral sciences field. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So the behavioral sciences is a very broad term. There are different subsects, exactly as you've said. One of them is behavior economics. There's another one called behavioral finance that deals with everything within the finance and investment and trade industry. There's also people out there who are behavioral linguists who focus specifically on communications and how do we tailor those with the human being in mind and how that impacts decisions. So behavior economics is a subsect that deals particularly with how people behave in a marketplace environment in the economy, how we choose to buy one thing over another, and how all these different elements affect our decision making and the choices that we make.
Great. For me, it's becoming so more important in today's world to understand, especially with AI and AI advancements, how all of these decisions we make, especially within in contact centers, BPOs, and customer experience, how the interoperability of humans versus AI works, and how do we better integrate those two. Give us three examples of experiments you've run that has delivered amazing results.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is kind of the fun part, right? So one of the big founding core principles of human beings is that we are social creatures. The influence that other people have on our own decisions is greatly underestimated, particularly by us, the person, because we don't really see how it's impacting us as much as. So one of my favorite experiments has to do with social conformity. So social conformity is essentially we want to fit in with the crowd and we tend to make a decision that the majority of people are making. Right. So that's why we look at Google reviews when we want to go away and stay at an Airbnb or stay at a hotel, or we want to find a new restaurant. We look at the reviews. We don't know if those people are lying. They could be lying, but we choose to take their response as an indicator of something that's accurate. Right.
Yes, yes.
So how we've tested this at Thrive BPO in BPOs is, for instance, conversion rates for customers getting onto debit orders and debit check. So what we do is, and our experiments have found that just telling people the benefits of taking up a debit order, and there are many benefits. It's an automated behavior. We're less likely to skip payments, really important ones, things like our life insurance premiums or whatever our payments are that we need to pay. Otherwise, we lose those benefits. So just telling people that the benefits of taking up a debit order is not enough to change behavior. What actually changes behavior is when we tell them, the customer, that thousands of other customers are making the same decision. When we tell people that, we found that we get a increase in conversion rates of at least 8 percentage points, which is massive when you consider that it's a single change in a script. It's one sentence, and that boosts shifts from like
Wow.
cash payments in a store to cash payments in a debit order. So that's one of my favorites for sure. The next one is choice congruence. So this is a behavioral principle that essentially states that we as human beings, we want to be congruent with the choices that we made in the past. You know, if I asked you, Vanna, if your favorite rugby team is the Bulls today, and then next week I come to you and I'm like, what's your favorite team? And you tell me that your favorite team is the Sharks, I'm going to think of you as a bit of an unreliable person that chops and
Sure,
changes
sure.
on their decisions. So we like to stay very congruent with the choices that we made in the past because it becomes part of our identity and also how other people perceive us later on down the line as either unreliable, whatever it may be. So in a very large call center, what we did, well, the problem was that they were experiencing a lot of disinvestment rates from things like tax-free savings accounts. And of course, when people disinvest, they get further and further away from the goal that they set originally when they took out the investment, right? So if I was saving for a house and then I keep withdrawing, I'm getting further and further away from that goal that I set. So in the script, what we did was we added a nudge that simply asked the customer on the line when they called in to do a disinvestment, so ma'am, what was the original goal that you set when you took out this policy? And that nudge, among with other nudges in the script, with a team of 6 over 6 weeks, we piloted, saved the company 25 million, just over 25 million in disinvestments. And we could prove that statistically because we had a very large sample. So very small nudge, just asking the question, triggered this choice congruence and made us remember that our past decision was a good one to save for a goal. And that reduced the amount that people disinvested in the long run, which was really cool. And the last one is, so those two are customer facing. The work that I do also involves agents or employees. So one of my favorite nudges for employees is around incentives. So how do we incentivize call center agents to work harder, be more productive? And one of the ways we do that is by not just giving extrinsic incentives, so money, because we think that throwing money at people is just going to make them work harder. But what the behavioral research has shown is that people work harder for money, but only in the short term. And then their performance returns to an average level. What's much more motivating is when we give more frequent, smaller, and cheaper rewards that come more often. So what we do in BPOs is we do things like an SMS from a team leader or a manager, somebody in an authority position. Just send an SMS to say, hey, I heard that you met your target yesterday. Really well done. Very cheap to do, incredibly motivating for a person. Sure. Because with incentives, we miss out with money. We miss out the idea of social recognition, to be recognized for our efforts, the challenge and the mastery of taking on something new and challenging and achieving it. So what we do at Thrive BPO is we bring some of those aspects back in, and therefore we trigger what's called intrinsic motivation. So that is doing things for pride, for mastery, for purpose, and for something bigger than ourselves. So stuff like the message from the manager, so motivating. And we also put in a bit of gamification, so leaderboards, and we build in a bit more human competition, which really drives performance. So those three are three that
sounds
that
really fascinating. I think in the end, people working in contact centers, obviously there's a big motivation around money, but like you said, I think it only takes you until the next month, at the end of the next month. And then you need to just pick yourself up and be motivated to go to work again and work in a space where there's already a fair amount of uncertainty, what's happening in the market. So, and especially with the advancements of AI. But we're not going to get into that. That's for another discussion. I think there's a big thing to be said about the co-piloting working humans with AI rather. I think that's definitely the model of the future. So before we get too much sidetracked, if you don't mind, let's go a bit deeper into maybe one of the examples you've given. Can you walk us through the steps you'll take or a lead in a contact center can take to implement something like that? How would it practically work?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me chat about, and I'll take everyone through actually how to practically do this. And you could do this in the next 2 weeks. You could probably implement this. So I'm going to chat about the first one I spoke about, which is converting cash payments to debit order or debit check. Okay. So first of all, it's a really positive thing for both parties in the relationship. The customer pays more often and more frequently and keeps their benefits. And for the company, they also retain that customer for a much longer time. And that's great for revenue generally and for positive customer satisfaction. So what you do if you want to boost your debit order conversions is you start by going to your data team and requesting data. So ask your data team how many of your customers on books currently have a debit order set up. And you can do this for the entire team, or if you're going to pilot, which I'd recommend, do it for one team, one campaign in your BPO. So get the data Now you'll see exactly how many people have got debit orders set up. The next thing that you need to do is craft the message. Okay. Now, in order to really apply the behavior economics principle here, you need to frame the message to say that the majority of people are doing it. That's really important. And we don't lie. That's why we get data. So the data is really
Yes.
important, because if you lie and
Sure.
you get caught in lie, the reputational damage is going to be terrible to your company.
Yeah,
So
sure.
get the data. Now, let's say you have a customer base of, I'm going to make a very small base of 2,000 people, okay, as an example. And your data shows you that 1,000 people, so 50% of people have a debit order set up. In your message, you will say, in the part of the script where you sell the debit order, you'll say, "Dear sir or ma'am, have you thought about taking up a debit order? Thousands of our customers,
Yes.
just like you, are also taking up a debit order."
Sure.
Okay, so
Sure.
thousands of customers just like you are also doing this. Put that into the script, and then set up the pilot. So very important to remember here is never say what the minority of people are doing. So if in that list of 2,000, if only 500 people are doing it, and you tell people only 500 people are doing it, that's less than
Yes.
the majority, that is going to backfire badly.
No, sure.
Because
That
when
makes
we
sense.
hear what the minority of people are doing, we think, well, why should I do that?
No,
This nudge only
absolutely.
works, and social conformity only works when we make decisions around what the majority of the crowd are doing. So that's why we say thousands of customers rather than 50% of
Yes.
customers, because thousands of customers is a different way to frame that, because there are thousands of
Yes.
customers. If you have the actual number, and let's say there's 1,500 of your customers out of 2,000 are doing it, then you say that 1,500 customers, so 3/4 of, or 75% of our customers are currently doing this, and that makes it even more powerful. But if you have less than the majority, say thousands of our customers doing it, or most of our customers, or many of our customers. Okay.
Wow, that's really helpful.
Yeah. So then you put that into the script, get two teams, team A, team B, have one team implement that script with the new nudge, thousands of our customers, have the other team do exactly the same as they've always done. So that's your control group. Have them do that over a period of time. I would recommend usually a month to 5 weeks, and then measure at the end, see
Yes.
which team had more conversion rates. And that you can do very quickly and implement, and it'll have a dramatic impact on your conversion rates for debit orders.
Wow, that's really helpful. Thanks, Kevin. I think the more we go into a space of experimentation and online terms, A/B testing, control group testing, all those terms are relevant. I think the more we run these tests ongoing, I think that's really where those incremental changes and incremental wins come from. And I think with the sort of widespread adoption of behavioral economics, I think we're going to see a lot more of that, especially with the advancement of AI and how that also impacts on the key performance indicators. So, in your opinion, what's the one thing every call center leader, any CX leader or BPO leader need to get as we move into the age of AI? What's your view, perspective, opinions on that?
Yeah, it's a great question and so relevant, right? So, over the years with tech, we've automated a lot of BPO processes with things like interactive voice response. So, your IVRs, we do WhatsApp channels, we do self service, and now chatbots. Okay. Now, that may be the case, but 62% of customers still want to speak to a human being. So, while technology has advanced rapidly and evolved very quickly, the human brain has stayed the same for thousands of years. Okay. It has not changed as quickly as tech has. So, those things like social conformity still impact to a huge extent our choice and decision making and judgment, especially when we're making a call, whether it's customer service, collections, those things are still impacting us. So we strip away the human element at our own peril with AI by reducing the human to human connection. And there's something about AI. So AI is built by human beings. And when you understand how AI actually works, you understand that it still thinks like a human being because it's been built by us. So how AI works, and I've seen a 3D model, is the words that you type into an LLM, it will seek the closest possible answers in order to give you not a true answer, but a probabilistic answer. So
Yes.
the closest it can get to your answer, that's the answer that it gives you. And that is incredibly similar to how the human brain works. So that's the
Yes.
fast answer. It does that very quickly. The human brain has what we've found is that there are two systems. So there's a fast system. When we make decisions very quickly in the moment, we get an answer very quick, but it's less accurate.
Yes.
There's a slower system for us. And that slower system, when we think things through and we get more information, we gather data, we come to a more accurate answer, but it takes longer. And with an AI now, you can select a deep thinking option, particularly for research.
Yes.
So the way that an AI is built is very similar to the human brain. And what that means is that it also succumbs to biases, much like
Yes.
that fast. I don't know if you've typed into an LLM and it just pulls, sometimes it's random. It's not always correct
Yes.
because it's
Sure.
probabilistic. So like availability bias, we have it, humans, it has it too. Availability bias says that we pull information that comes quickest to our mind. So we might cancel a vacation to the beach after we hear about a shark attack, right? Even though shark attacks are very few. I think you're more likely
Yes.
to die by being hit with a coconut on
Yeah,
the head
exactly.
than by a shark attack. So these are the things that we truly need to understand about AI. Is number one, an AI is never going to be able to give you the same human-to-human connection because it
Yes.
cannot share a lived experience with you. And if it does, we'll
Yes.
know. We'll know that this isn't a true connection that we're building.
Absolutely.
And the
Yes.
second one is that an AI is still going to have a lot of the biases that humans do because we are the
Sure.
creators. We built it.
Sure.
So we need to be very careful around that and understand that when we start implementing.
No, that's a really great perspective. And to add to what you're saying, I read an article, and this is many years ago, around, I think it was Obama that was traveling to the East or Southeast Asia. And there was a little kids asking him questions about what they read on the internet about him. And he was like, he just shot it down. He said, don't believe everything you read on the internet. So that made me think, because the other day I saw someone release and again, we don't know how true that is, but what does this LLM gets trained on? And as far as I understand and I could see is it's on Reddit. Now, those are still opinions.
Yeah.
Those are still perspectives. So like you said, if it finds an answer, it finds the closest answer that is expected to be found based on the information that's available, not necessarily all true. So, and I think, but that's where I think a lot of the effort is going in, especially in customer experience BPOs and contact centers, in training it on the relevant information and obviously the information data that needs in order to service a client also and support an agent in servicing a client. We've just scratched the surface of how behavioral economics and behavioral insights can deliver some real results with some small changes. Is there a resource you can recommend for beginners?
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually put together a quick guide on how to implement that debit order nudge that I spoke about. So it's
Brilliant.
going to be really exclusive for Get AI. Very simple guide, exactly as I explained, on how to practically implement behavior economics principles into your BPO in the next 2 weeks and see impact and results.
Brilliant. Now I'm looking forward to that, and sharing that with all our subscribers. Thanks so much, Kevin. Thanks for being on the show. It's been a real pleasure to understand how behavioral economics is impacting the workforce and how it will impact the workforce. I do believe it's going to be big, and even a bigger subset of sciences going forward in how we manage this change in contact centers, BPO, a lot more human centric and responsible. I think, like you said, humans still want to find connection with humans, and that will always be, how can I say, our guiding light in the deployment of AI. So we need all of these tools and different subsets of capabilities to really help the contact centers, BPOs, and customer experience professionals on that journey. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Truly a pleasure for me as well.